he said, never stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. In the world today, we don't question things enough. When we're kids, we're always questioning, isn't it? You should do like this. Why? Because of this. Why? Because of that. Why? Why? Just do it. So when we're kids, we always ask, why? But then once we get older, we stop asking questions, we just tend to accept everything. It's interesting, even when we came to Krishna consciousness, the devotees encouraged us to start questioning everything. But after some time, once we're in the movement, then again we stop questioning. So Einstein, he said, never stop questioning, always continue to question, because questions, they open up the opportunity to understand things in a much deeper way. Therefore, it's mentioned in the Shastra that when the Ganga comes into the universe, then the Ganga purifies the three worlds. And similarly, it's mentioned when the flow of Hari Katha is going on, then everyone is getting benefit. The one who is answering questions, the one who is asking questions, and everyone else who is hearing those questions and answers. All three parties are becoming purified. And of the three, the one who is giving the answers gets the most purification. That's the only reason I'm here, otherwise I'm kidding. But next person in line is the one who asks. So we should always ask many questions, and we should ask relevant questions. We should ask questions which are going to help us to lead a better life. Srila Prabhupada was the best at answering questions. No one could answer questions like Srila Prabhupada. Someone said, Swamiji, I heard the death rate is very high in India. Prabhupada said the death rate is the same everywhere, 100%. No one gets out of here alive. Yes, when the reporter came to Srila Prabhupada, the lady, why do you shave your head? Prabhupada shot back. Why do you shave your legs? Prabhupada answered for her and said, we prefer a cool head and warm legs. We need a cool head to understand Krishna. One time they invited Prabhupada on a radio show. So you know what it's like on a radio show, these kind of things, they are always looking to ask some controversial questions, you know. Nam Ras's podcast. Some controversy, always looking for some. Nowadays they call it clickbait. Something which will get the clicks. So he wanted to ask some controversial question, but the devotees, they knew Prabhupada was coming in, so they already made an arrangement. So the presenter said, and we'll open the lines, anyone, ask your question. So the first question was from a devotee on the other side, and he said, Swamiji, what is Krishna consciousness? Boom, Prabhupada began giving a 20-minute lecture. So the reporter was getting annoyed here, you know, like he was thinking, I'm trying to get some controversy here. He said, okay, next question. So they opened the line. It was another devotee. Swamiji, what is Bhagavad Gita? Another 20-minute lecture. This reporter was getting very annoyed. So the reporter said, forget it, I'll ask the questions. So he said, Swamiji, why are you in San Francisco? Prabhupada said, the rent is very cheap. He said, why are your students hippies? Prabhupada said, they are not hippies, they're happies. And he said, how did you come here to America? Prabhupada said, free passage on board a ship. He said, who paid for it? Prabhupada said, free passage means no charge. And then the reporter said, are you a freeloader? Prabhupada said, yes. So like this, Prabhupada knew how to answer people's questions. So all of our scriptures are in the form of questions and answers. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked so many questions. Sometimes his questions are, Krishna, I don't understand what you're saying. Sometimes his questions are, Krishna, I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't make logical sense to me. And sometimes his questions are, Krishna, I understand what you're saying. It makes logical sense to me, but I have no idea, how do I apply this? So only when we understand something, we can accept it logically, and we know how to apply it, and we have the enthusiasm to do so, then we have the full answer. And so we continue questioning, continue exploring. So today we give you an opportunity. Maybe you have some questions, something on your mind, something to do with Krishna consciousness, philosophy, something to do with the practice, something to do with something going on in the world and how we see it through a spiritual light. Yes, over to you. Yes, okay, at the back. Do we have a mic, a roving mic? Or,
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, good to see you in person. I have seen you on the YouTube and other places.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry. So you are basically inspiration for our young generation, and I think I'm also included in it. So basically, you know, what I was reading was that actually Krishna and ourselves as human beings, we are same in quality, but not in quantity. If we are so like that, in that terms, why it is so difficult to negate all these materialistic things so that we can only think about the absolute truth? So it doesn't happen even if we commit right now, after a few minutes we forget that and we are engaged in a lot of other things. And it will take time to get back. It is already too late seems. So this is my personal answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. Which, as I understand, is that if we are the same in quality as Krishna, then how is it that we become covered by this Maya, diverted? Is that the question? Like, why is it we become so enamored and distracted and tempted by this inferior world? Krishna says, Mama Maya Duratyaya is very hard, it's very difficult, formidable. See, it's like this. Say you're looking at the sun, and the glaring sun is there. But then what you do is you put a 2 cents coin. Do you have a 2 cents coin? 1 cent. Okay. So you put a 1 cent coin. And what you do is you put it right in front of your eye. Then what does that 1 cent coin do? It actually covers the whole sun. But what is the size of that 1 cent coin in comparison to the sun? It's nothing. So actually, the living entity has the power. But what the living entity does is the living entity allows Maya, by its own volition, to overcome its vision. So we've allowed, we want Maya. We say we don't want it, but we want it. And because we want it, therefore it covers us. One time there was a sage, he was giving a class, and so someone asked, what is the nature of moha, illusion? So immediately he jumped off the Vyasasana, he went into the courtyard, everyone followed him, and he grabbed hold of a tree and he started shouting, let me go, let me go, let me go. This is illusion. So it's actually very easy. You just have to let go. You have to let go of the material desires, let go of the material conceptions, but they're so hard to let go of. So actually the living entity is much more powerful, but the living entity allows that Maya, like the 1 cent coin, which is insignificant, but which has come very close and therefore covers that which is immeasurably big. And so we must be careful, because Maya is coming into our life and we are allowing Maya to come in at every moment. And therefore Srila Prabhupada said, this is our problem, that we are not sufficiently cautious of how to remain free from these influences. So it's like that. It's not hard, but it requires one to let go. Hope that helps in some way. Thank you. Yes, others.
A similar question follow-up to that. Why does I find so hard to do side-by-side bhakti and karma? What do I do?
So why is it that you find it so hard to practice bhakti and at the same time do your duties of this world like that? Why is that such a challenge? Why is that so difficult? It's difficult because we make it difficult. Because what we're doing right now is we're seeing our interest and Krishna's interest as different. This is in Sanskrit known as Pritak Bhav, separatist mentality. Because we're kind of seeing my interest and Krishna's interest. One for Krishna, two for me. Something for Krishna, but something also for me. And because we're seeing our existence and Krishna's existence as separate, therefore it creates a dichotomy in our life. But when we realize whatever I'm doing, it's for the pleasure of Krishna, then what happens is it becomes much easier to do your activities and to do your different duties in this world and connect it to Krishna, and not see it as an obstacle, not see it as a diversion, not see it as something separate from your spirituality, but everything becomes integrated. And therefore the art of Krishna consciousness, yoga karma shukoshalam, the art of working, is to see how you can make everything with Krishna in the center. So it's hard, because right now we don't have that mentality that everything in my life is connected to Krishna. We have the mentality that I'll do something for Krishna, but other parts of my life I just have to do it for my own thing, for my own maintenance. And therefore it creates a kind of tension. But when we begin to see that, no, it's all integrated, it's all part of my service, then it becomes much more easy to do both side by side. So gradually we're trying to move in that direction by connecting everything you do in your life and bringing Krishna in as part of that equation. So that is a step-by-step process. Some thoughts? Thank you. Yes?
Thank you, Maharaj. So you start off the talk talking about how we should never stop questioning and we should try to understand things. But then many times in the scriptures we also see there's places where it just goes over the head. And whoever you ask, it just doesn't go in. You just can't understand it. Or even certain things in the scriptures which itself are not understandable based on our perceptions or our nature. So I don't know if you could share more about how to manage that.
So there are parts of the scriptures, parts of the philosophy which we feel like just questioning it more and more will not lead to much clarity and is almost like hitting a dead end. So should we continue questioning those things? See, questioning is always there. The nature of the questioning is what one needs to pay attention to. In other words, those sections of the Bhagavatam, we may not question in an analytical way because we know, like, how much analysis will I be able to accommodate within my tiny brain. But what we can ask is we can ask different questions. What is the implication of this for my life? Why is this even presented if I can't understand it? Why were these questions asked? And what is the purpose of the scripture spending so much time talking about these things? In other words, even if you can't understand the thing analytically, you can still ask many questions around that thing that will still nourish your bhakti. And therefore, still, for example, there'll be things about creation and the elements and so on and so forth that are very difficult to understand analytically. But we can still ask questions like, why is this even there? What am I supposed to learn from this? The fact that I can't understand that, how can that nourish my bhakti? See, these questions can still be asked.
So, like Prabhuji said earlier, that we're in minute quantities, but the qualities are the same. So in Krishna, there is no envy; it doesn't exist. So why does it exist in us?
There's no end in Krishna in terms of
envy.
Oh, there's no envy in Krishna. Okay, so why does it exist in us? Envy is a perverted reflection of appreciation. When someone has appreciation for someone else, but they wish they had that thing themselves, and it causes them to then look at the other person and begin to think negatively of that person, then that's basically called envy. So envy is basically a perverted reflection of appreciation. And so, therefore, the Acharyas teach us how all of these qualities, all we have to do, all these negative qualities, is just turn them around and spiritualize them. Because actually the root of them is something spiritual also. And so, yes, Krishna has no envy. Krishna says that Samoham sarva bhuteshu na me dveshosti na priyaha. I don't have any envy. I'm equal to everyone. And Krishna appreciates any small thing that the devotee does. So yes, Krishna has that. But we are looking at others and we are seeing good things, but then we are feeling an inferiority complex because someone has something I don't have. And therefore we are coming into a very negative frame of mind. You know the story of the person who was offered anything, but his neighbor would get double. And so he got a car and the neighbor got 2. He got a 5-floor building and the neighbor got 10. Until the point which he said to the genie, I want to go blind in one eye. So that's envy, because it begins to, someone else's success, someone else's prosperity makes us feel somewhat inferior, and then we become envious. But it's an appreciation. So the root of all of these things is actually something we can work with.
So appreciating that person should help to negate the envy. Is that the way to spiritualize the...
Yeah, if you feel envious of someone, then you should try to assist that person to be more successful in their life, to actually celebrate in where they're going. And that becomes very, very beautiful. It's hard. They say harder than feeling distress in someone else's difficulty, harder than feeling compassion in someone else's difficulty, even that's hard. But harder than that is to feel genuinely happy in someone else's success. So we have to try to do that. That is Vaishnava, to always try to share in the success of others. Yes, Om.
Krishna Maharaj, Pranam, Krishnapaji Buddha. So Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says that he has no envy, he's similar to everybody. And those who, and at the same time Krishna says that those who practice devotional service selflessly, they are more favorable to me. So how would you say that?
Okay, good question. What you should be saying here. So Krishna on one hand says, Samoham sarva bhuteshu, I'm equal to everyone, I don't envy anyone. And then in the very next line he says, Desham nitya bhiyuktanam. No, what is the next line? Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshostina priya. Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya mai te teshu chapi aham. Then in the very next two lines Krishna says, but one who renders service to me, I am especially favored towards them. So, your question is a very good question, and the acharyas themselves address this question in the commentary. You and them must be on the same wavelength. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, if I remember correctly, or Baladev Vidyabhusan, one of them, mentions the answer to this. He says the first two lines of that verse refer to Krishna as Paramatma. Krishna as Paramatma envies no one. He's equal to everyone. Whatever you do, Paramatma looks, the eternal CCTV. Just Upadrashta, Anumanta Cha, just reciprocating with you. But the acharyas tell us the next two lines refer to Krishna as Bhagavan. And Krishna as Bhagavan is a person. Krishna as Bhagavan is having heartfelt relationships. And Krishna as Bhagavan is becoming conquered by the love of his devotees. And therefore that Krishna becomes touched, becomes moved, and becomes especially favored and disposed towards his devotees. And so both of these things are true. In one sense, Krishna is completely neutral. In another sense, Krishna becomes transcendentally partial towards his devotees, because this refers to different aspects of Krishna's nature. Is that okay? All right, thank you very much. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Can we ask logical questions, Maharaj?
Logical is good, better than illogical. Yes, please do.
Whenever in Bhagavatam, some of the stories we listen, so in some places, if I am thinking in a logical way, then I think that maybe that is wrong. Why I am thinking like that? Is it okay to think if it is right or not?
As in, you read some things and it doesn't match with your logic, your perception of reality. It almost sounds like mythology to the logical mind. So how do we register those parts of the scripture? Oceans of milk, or monkeys jumping from one country to another. Once His Holiness Jayabheta Maharaj was I remember he was in Soho Temple, so he was talking about Hanuman jumping from one country to another. So one person, he put his hand up and he said, "You don't believe that, do you?" So Maharaj said, "Yes, we do believe it." So he said, "How can a monkey jump from one country to another?" So So Jayaveta Maharaj said, just because you can't do it. So he became a little like, he said, bro, how do you know I can't do it? Maybe I can do it. Maybe I can do it. And I said, well, if you can do it, then Hanuman can also do it. It's very interesting. Actually, once Radha Govinda Maharaj, when he first started traveling, I remember, this was, I don't know when, how many years ago. Anyway, he came to a Western country and you walk through those doors and there's like, the sensor opens and then the doors open. So he was walking through those doors and then the doors just opened and he walked through. And then he went down and then he goes, what just happened there? Like it was the first time he had seen that. He said, what? So the devotee explained, like, no, there's a sensor and it opens and like this. And then he made the point. He said, it's amazing. We question like anything. 5,000 years ago when Krishna was born and Vasudev picked up Krishna and the jail doors just naturally opened. We have such a big issue with that. And here we are just walking through the doors and we have no issue. Like it's just normal. This is normal. But when it comes to reading in Krishna, no, this is not logical. How can the doors open? If 100 years ago you told someone you can press a plastic button and then speak to someone on the other side of the world, they'd be thinking like, are you mad? Like, what are you talking about? This is like from some sci-fi movie. And now we just do it without thinking, a second thought. This is how limited our thinking is. We tend to always measure everything within our own limited conception. And so if we go on with that kind of methodology, then our perception and discovery of reality will be severely limited. And so logic and argument, Vyasadeva says, is insufficient to understand the absolute truth. Tarko pradishta shrutayo vibhinna nasha vrishir yasya matam na bhinnam dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajohno yena katha sapantha. The Mahabharata says that tarka, or logic, pradishta shrutayo vibhinna, will not be sufficient to establish the absolute truth. So, therefore, yes, we use our mind, we use our logic, but we understand its limitations. And so then we refer to Shruti to get higher truths. Is that okay? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. And so Maharaj, I have a very simple question. Could you please share something about your own life, like how you started the spiritual journey? What was your spiritual quest like? As I briefly read that you started it at a very young age of 21. So was it like a natural spiritual quest that you had, or there were some external life circumstances that drove you in this direction? And why did you feel that Krishna consciousness, I'm sure you must have tasted different waters as well while you were on your spiritual quest, so why did you feel that Krishna consciousness is the final place that you want to be in?
Okay, talk about my life, my small life growing up in a Gujarati family in northwest London, Wembley. My life is not so exciting. But yes, when I was 15, I began questioning things. I don't know what it was. There was nothing really going wrong in my life, not that I could see anyway. Maybe it was, I don't know. But many questions were coming to my mind about meaning, about purpose, about why we're here, about what real success is. I guess I grew up in a family where everything was provided. I saw people who had 2 cars, 2 houses, 2 phones, too much. Still not happy. Still not satisfied. And so I would always think, is that what the goal of life is? So I started reading the Gita. And when I first read the Gita, it was a profound experience for me. Because when I read it, I was 15, I understood absolutely nothing. And I still thought, this is an amazing book. It was the first time in my life that I read a book, I understood nothing, and I still thought, this is amazing. I was like, this must be spiritual, but I have no clue. Like, why am I so inspired? I don't even get it. But something spoke to me and said, there's something amazing here. But if I want to understand it, I'm going to have to be a little more patient. I'm going to have to try to really put some energy and effort into this. And so when I was about 15, 16, then I started speaking to the men in orange, the monks. And my dad told me, don't get too close to those guys. Keep a safe distance. I said, oh, I'm a balanced person, don't worry. Everything will be fine. So I started speaking to the devotees, and I was quite challenging with them. I asked many questions, and they were good. I mean, after like spending time with the devotees, I was like, these guys got answer for everything, you know, like, these guys are so smart. So I asked them all my questions. I ran out of questions. I got all my answers, and yeah, then I went to university, and I guess my path was just different. I went to one corporate interview in my whole life. I always in my life hated wearing a suit. I just couldn't wear a suit. I don't know why, you know. So anyway, finally everyone told me, no, like there's all these opportunities, you got to go for a job. And so I went to this, at that time it was an internet startup firm. So I remember I was just about to graduate from university, so I went to this firm and I went dressed in a suit for this job. So I walked into the reception. So I said, I'm here for the interview. So they said, okay, sit down. So I sat down. And it was one of these open plan offices. So I was looking around and I was just thinking, I can't do this. This is not me. This is not what I'm meant to do in my life. And then I heard footsteps coming. And I was like, that's the person for the interview. And in that moment, I just stood up and I ran out. That was my first and last interview in the corporate world. I was well and truly a failure. And I was running like that. And then, yeah, what to say? When I was 21, I decided to take a different journey. And many of you are from a Gujarati family, so you know what that's like. It's like, now here I am telling my mom and dad, I'm going to become a monk. One of our devotees used to say, for most people, the difficulty coming to Krishna consciousness is Mahapap. They've done too many bad things in their life, but for Gujaratis, it's Mabap. Mom and dad are not happy. So, of course, my mom and dad are good now. But at that time, it was not easy. So then I went to India, and then I found my calling. And I guess that's what I was meant to do. And that's how my journey went. So for 25 years now, something like that, yeah. I've been doing that. And everyone has to find their own. Grihe thako, vane thako, sada hari bole thako. So it doesn't really matter, actually. I come in front of you as a sannyasi. I don't think that makes me any greater than any of you. Sa sannyasi, cha yogi, cha na niragnir, na cha kriya. Who's the real sannyasi? that person who has no attachment, has no selfish motivation, that person who offers everything to Krishna with love, freely, not grudgingly, from the heart. So that person that does that is the greatest sannyasi. So I guess this was my path. Everyone here has their path. We all have our paths, and ultimately we all have to find some way to give our life to Krishna. It doesn't matter how you get there, this way or that way, but one has to find what is suitable for them. So this was suitable for me. Of course, I had to make hard decisions along the way. And so what I would say to everyone is that if you want to follow your deepest spiritual aspirations, you have to be ready to make decisions, hard decisions. You have to be ready that maybe everyone around you won't be happy. In the ultimate sense, they will be happy, but in the beginning, maybe not. And that's hard. If you really want to do Krishna consciousness properly, then you have to take some risks. You have to be brave. You have to be courageous. You have to be willing to go away from what everyone else in the world is telling you. You won't be able to be normal anymore. Once my mom came to me and she said, "Can't you just be normal?" I said, "It's too late." Too late. And then I read a quote by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. He said, "Those who are now considered normal accept the principles and values of an insane world." What's normal? You don't want to be normal. But it takes bravery not to be normal, not to be ordinary, but to be extraordinary. And that's the prospect of Krishna consciousness, and that's what each one of us are trying to do. We're not just trying to fit into the world, we're trying to get out of this world. Don't try and fit into this world. In my whole life, I was trying to fit in and not stick out. I never wanted to stick out. And then I became like 6'5" when I was 16. And then I was like, no, I won't stick out. And then I became a Hare Krishna, sticking out. And then I became a brahmachari, saffron, sticking out. And now I have one of these. I mean, you can't stick out more than this. You walk through, the New York subway with one of these. I mean, this guy. So people look at you, it's like, this guy is strange. But you know what I do now? Sometimes people, they just stare at me. People just stare at me. So when people stare at me, all I do now is I just stare right back at them. And I just keep looking at them. And then soon they're like, is there something wrong with you? So I realize it's all in the mind. You just have to be Krishna confident. Like, I'm not strange. You're strange. I'm not strange. You're strange. Because you spend your whole life, you spend all your time, your energy, your effort in investing things that ultimately will be taken away, mrityu sarva harascha aham. And then you leave with nothing. That's strange. So, anyway, I could say so much more about this, but anyway, this was my meager life, still trying to make it useful. But Srila Prabhupada was amazing because Srila Prabhupada was a spiritual disruptor. When Srila Prabhupada came into my life through his writings, he just disrupted my whole life. And it was brilliant. Disruption is good. So it helps us to become more conscious and aware. I don't know if this answered your question, but thank you. Oh, you have a question?
I don't mind. I think it's a good follow-up to the question Matiki asked and your reply. So, there are many people, individuals who are seeking a specific religion or a specific spiritual path. Many of them have the desire to, search around everywhere. Just let me first go into this path, this religion, learn about them, and continue to search around. But then there's always one day when people, they just come to a Krishna conscious center, ISKCON center. So I guess they still have the inclination to go back out and let me search, continue searching. So what can we say to those individuals that Krishna consciousness is kind of the end of the journey? Like what is it that we have that will end the journey of individuals looking for God or a spiritual understanding?
So people, thank you so much. So people are looking for something spiritual and they're searching, and as part of their searching they come to ISKCON, the Hare Krishna movement. And what can we do to convince them that this is the end? You don't need to look anywhere else. This is the culmination of everything. To be honest, I don't think you can do anything. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yam labdva chaparam labham manyate nadikam tata yasmin stito na dukhena gurunapi vichalyate. That once established in spiritual consciousness, one thinks Yam labdva, having obtained this happiness, chaparam labham manyate na adikam tata. They think once established in this consciousness, there's nothing more to gain. In other words, someone has to taste Krishna consciousness. Someone has to actually experience the happiness, the joy, the love. I don't think we can keep ourselves or keep anyone else in Krishna consciousness just through argument, just through philosophy. Ultimately, we all seek to experience rasa. And we will go wherever we find rasa. And therefore, only that person who has understood that Krishna and experienced that Krishna is the rasovai saha, the reservoir of all transcendental experience, only that person will remain fixed. And Krishna confirms that. Krishna says, Vishaya Vinivartante niraha rasyatehina rasovarjam rasopyasya paramdreshtva nivartate. Krishna says one may be restricted. You may put all kinds of restrictions and tell people, don't do this, don't do that, don't go there, don't go that. But only one who has experienced, only they are fixed in consciousness. And so, Krishna consciousness, when I came to the temple, I said to one devotee, I don't know if Krishna exists. And he looked at me and said, we're not trying to convince you Krishna exists. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you trying to do then? He said, no, we are not trying to convince you that Krishna exists. We're equipping you with the tools, practices, and processes by which you can perceive the presence of Krishna at every moment in your life. We want you to experience Krishna. We don't want you to just believe. So our process is not so much about belief. You see, the spiritual process, ado shraddha, it begins with faith. It's interesting that some religions end with faith. That yes, the goal is have faith. And if you have faith, you will be saved. But for us, faith is just the beginning. Ado shraddha. And then what happens? Tata, sadhu, sangha, and then bhajana kriya, and then nishta. Nishta. So someone needs to come to nishta. Nishta means literally fixed. Like, it's very interesting, the Sanskrit language. Like, say for example, tell me words which begin with ST. Any words, English? Stop. Stay. Stand. You get the point, right? Stay, stand, stop, stick. See, can you see? All of them have a sense of you remain there. Right? So nishta. Nishta literally means completely fixed. So once one comes to nishta, one cannot be moved. So if we really want to convince people, and if we want to be convinced ourselves, it means we have to actually experience that transcendental reality. So,
After your question.
Hare Krishna, this is Shanti Rupa. I have a question, I'm not sure if it is relevant because you said you need to ask relevant questions. So, why devotees have to be humble? What is exactly the humility means? Because we see Krishna and Arjuna also showed, not humble all the time, right? In the Kurukshetra, they even fought and they even killed. So I would like to, get an answer from you, like what is exactly the humility, and is it okay if we fight for righteousness? We devotees, we should not feel guilt of not being humble in many times. So I just wanted to hear from you.
So humility doesn't mean to become passive. Humility doesn't mean to become weak. Humility doesn't mean to remove yourself from actively making a contribution or changing something in the world. Humility means you do all of that, but you do it with no ego. Srila Prabhupada was so humble, but he could also be stronger than a thunderbolt when he needed to be. One devotee came to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, they said we come from monkeys. Prabhupada said, if they're saying that, I say they're still monkeys. And then the devotee said, but Prabhupada, they've got their theory. They're saying there's just a few missing links. Prabhupada said, the only missing link is my foot in their face. He was humble. Humble. Prabhupada came to one Mr. Sethi in Mumbai. And Prabhupada asked him, what do you do in the morning? He was a supporter of the movement. Prabhupada said, what do you do in the morning? He said, I wake up about 8, 9 o'clock. Prabhupada said, what do you do then? He said, sometimes I have breakfast in bed. It's like a great Western custom. Prabhupada looked at him and said, what's the difference between you and a pig? And he said, for the first time in my life, someone actually spoke to me, not trying to flatter me, not trying to impress me, not just trying to get something from me, but for the first time in my life, someone was actually speaking to me for my benefit. And he perceived that humility of Prabhupada. So humility is something very, very deep. It means that we take ourselves out of the center. So therefore, some of the most humble people in the world are also extremely active and also extremely strong when it's needed. But there's no ego. And when people receive that stern aspect of someone's personality, but they see that behind it there is great humility, they are able to accept it. So yes, Arjuna was also humble, but he was fighting on the battlefield. And so humility means just do what you have to do to serve. But don't do it out of any pride or vanity. Do it in the mood of service. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. How do we see Krishna's hand and His grace in life's situations and shortcomings and problems? Like, how do we see His love even when, life may throw things at us? And how do we be grateful that, like they say that we may have karma, but Krishna is delivering our karma and how he sees it fit for us. So how do we see his hand in our lives?
So sometimes things happen in our life and we're not sure why is Krishna doing this? It sometimes feels bewildering. How do we see Krishna's hands? How do we decode his love in very, very confusing situations? They say you can't understand Krishna, but you can make the choice to stand under Krishna. In moments where we can't understand Krishna, then we take shelter. We take shelter of Vaishnavas. We take shelter of the process of Krishna consciousness. We take shelter of Shastra. Eventually what happens is in the course of time, things reveal themselves. We have to live life going forward, but often we can only join the dots looking backwards. And therefore, who can understand the plan of Krishna? Even Bhishma Dev looked at the Pandavas and what did he say? Nahyasya karhichit papan puman veda viditsitam yad vijigyasaya yuktam muyanti kavayopihi. Even if you're a kavi, even if you're an extremely learned person, muyanti, you'd become completely bewildered, baffled, bemused if you try to decode the plan of Krishna, because Krishna is 10 steps ahead. Krishna is like an expert chess player. He knows all the moves, like he's figured out all the combinations and he's moving the board and nobody has no idea how it's all moving. So therefore, we can't actually, you see, you'll never be able to understand Krishna, but you can develop your love for Krishna. And if you develop your love for Krishna, then even when you can't understand Krishna, it won't bewilder you. Like say for example in your life, if you have a loving relationship with someone and they do something which is very strange, still your immediate kind of reaction to that is there must be some reason, because the love overrides the confusion. So when you can't understand Krishna, stand under Krishna, try to take shelter of the process, and ultimately the world is perfectly imperfect. The world is constantly making us uncomfortable. We understand this. It's a great benediction. There's no point getting comfortable in a place which is ultimately going to eject you. And therefore, it's better that Krishna makes us a little uncomfortable. Some thoughts.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions on the front here? Since the mic is already in front of you.
Yeah, I don't want to go on too long. Also, maybe a couple of more questions. I think also everyone Prashad. Okay.
So, Maharaj, I was thinking, we hear how according to our karma, we get what we do. So I was wondering, how do we understand, or what is the parameter to know if we're over-endeavoring in our activities, especially most of us have families and we're engaged in the world. So how do we know, what is the parameter to know we're over-endeavoring? Those things that are going to come to us anyway.
So in the world we have duties, we have responsibilities, and we're also trying to achieve things for Krishna. And in order for that, we have to make an endeavor. But then we're also told, Atyahara prayasascha, that over-endeavoring for things which are very difficult to achieve will spoil your devotional service. So at what point does endeavor become over-endeavor? If you don't endeavor at all, then how can Krishna work with you? But if you over-endeavor, then... So I think the way to decipher that endeavor is becoming over-endeavor is when we become imbalanced in other parts of our life. when your endeavor means that your relationships are being affected, when your endeavor means that your physical health is being affected, when your endeavor means that your mental health is coming into a very difficult, uncomfortable state, and when your endeavor means that spiritually you're not able to give attention to core aspects of your practice, then we can understand maybe that endeavor is becoming over endeavor. So life is a juggling act. We have so many things to juggle, and therefore while doing one thing, we have to make sure that we don't become so fixated on that we neglect other very, very important things in our life. And so that is the great art of how to balance it all. And so over endeavor can generally be identified because we'll perceive that other elements are being neglected. I don't know if that helps. Thank you. All right.
Any other questions?
I had a quick question. I'm not sure if this has an answer, because many people mentioned that this is something to be experienced and not discussed. But I was just wondering, what is the relationship between Radha and Krishna? Many people say it's love and devotion, and of course, but just wondering what it was in essence.
Radha. Ra means, one meaning is given, Ra means rag, attachment, and Dha means dhavati, to run. So Radha literally means she who is running after her greatest object of affection, attachment, and love. So the Bhagavatam explains, Anayaradhito nunam Bhagavan Haririshvara, that there was one personality, one gopi, who aradhita, who worshipped, who gave her heart, who gave her mind, who gave all her being to Krishna, who invested everything in Krishna. That is Srimati Radharani. So Srimati Radharani is the embodiment of love for Krishna. She is the ideal example. Every aspect of her being is in service to Krishna. And so, yes, Srimati Radharani is worshipped, honored, and actually the focus of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, some people are interested in Radharani because of her connection with Krishna, but we are interested in Krishna because of his connection with Radharani. In other words, for the Gaudiyas, if there's ever an argument between Radharani and Krishna, they always take Radharani's side. So, there's only one thing greater than Krishna, and that's love for Krishna, because love for Krishna conquers Krishna. And Srimati Radharani is the embodiment of that. So, therefore, yes, Janmashtami comes, but in one sense, the real party is Radhastami. So in Braj, in Radhastami, there was one Brajabasi who was giving a 7-day katha for Radhastami. And for 6 days, he was only speaking about Krishna. It was like, we're celebrating Radhastami here. So he was only speaking Krishna, Krishna for 6 days. 7th day, he began his katha. He was only speaking still Krishna. It was like, time is running out. And right at the end, after enumerating all the glories of Krishna for 6 days and practically the rest of the hours for that 7th day, right at the end, he said, I have spoken to you about Krishna all of these days. All of the glories of Krishna. And it is this Krishna who bows down to the feet of Srimati Radharani. And that was his glorification of Srimati Radharani. Krishna is so great. Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Davam, Purusham, Shashvatam, Divyam, Adi Devam, Ajam Vibhum. That Krishna just bows down, conquered. So Radharani's love is so great that she contradicts all of Krishna's words by her love. Krishna said, Ye yatha mam prapadyante, I reward them accordingly. But when he saw Srimati Radharani's love, he said, Napadaye ham niravadya samyuja, I have nothing to repay you. You just contradicted my words. Your love was more powerful than my philosophy. Krishna said, Vedaham samadittani vartamani charjuna. I know all living entities. But then he saw Srimati Radharani's love and he said, I have no idea what kind of love you have. I will have to take your position. You've defeated my words. You've contradicted me. Krishna says, Bhoktaram yagyatapasham sarva loka maheshwaram. Krishna says, I'm in charge. I'm the loka maheshwaram. I control all the lands. Srimati Radharani came to Kusum Sarovar and she told Krishna and the cowherd boys, you get out of here. We own this place. Krishna had to submit. Srimati Radharani is the queen of Vrindavan. They can't do anything. So it's amazing. Srimati Radharani's love is so powerful that even Krishna's philosophy has to be contradicted because love is more powerful. So like this, we begin to understand this is an incredible theology. It's incredible because God becomes conquered by love. This we don't find anywhere else. This is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to reveal, the private life of God. Hare Krishna. So thank you so much.